One small cup of coffee kickstarted the rise of a multi-billion-dollar business. Have you ever wondered how a small coffee shop by the name of Starbucks rose to become a multinational company in 80 countries? And how it made annual profits that exceeded $30 billion and a total valuation of $113 billion? Let's find out in our story today. Starbucks is a cultural and business phenomenon that took the world by storm decades ago, and has never left our neighborhoods since then. It all began in 1971. Starbucks was originally founded by three savvy businessmen. They were Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Boker. They came together and opened up shop in the Pike Place Market in Seattle. Originally, it was just Gordon Boker himself on a trip around Europe that saw the potential in bringing high-quality, fast delivery coffee services back to America. He understood that people loved the simplicity behind it, and as luck would have it, his two friends agreed with him, and so began their entrepreneurial adventure. Those of you from the boomer generation will recognize all of that. Even as a small coffee shop with an uncertain future, Starbucks served great coffee, but it was still missing something. Moreover, the small shop only served coffee. They had no frappuccino, no drinks, and no unique refreshments. The business did well, nevertheless. Boker and his friends would see his Starbucks dream grow a tiny bit bigger. They opened 4 stores, served great coffee, and made quite a bit of money for everyone. What's not to like about that? During the 1980s, Starbucks' niche serving caught the attention of the then vice president of Hammerplast, Howard Schultz. Hammerplast was one of the suppliers for Starbucks, and as fate would have it, Schultz wanted to get involved with Starbucks business ventures more. For Schultz, as was the case for a lot of us, it all began with a cup of coffee. In fact, in one of his books, Schultz vividly describes the sensation when he first visited Starbucks, saying, "The minute the door opened, a heady aroma of coffee reached out and drew me in." Needless to say, Howard became a fan that night, and he wanted more of Starbucks to be shared with the world. Unfortunately, not all dreams come true. For Howard, the 3 founders saw that hiring him to help with the business side of things wouldn't be of much help, really. They already were sailing this ship well, so why complicate things further by bringing someone new? Well, Howard was not about to give up. He spent days, weekends, months, and eventually a whole year writing to the 3 founders, suggesting ideas and constantly doing his best to convince Boker and his friends of the many virtues Starbucks has. A year later, the stars aligned, and Howard joined the Starbucks team. And that right there was when the seeds of the great Starbucks empire were planted. Howard got involved more and more with the business. He wanted more than coffee, but he himself couldn't quite understand what Starbucks needed to explode in popularity. He took inspiration from Gordon Boker and decided to go on a trip around Europe, specifically Italy. Boker got the inspiration for Starbucks from there, and Howard wanted to know more. Yes, the Italian coffee houses were a fine place, indeed. They served coffee that made you go wowza every time you tasted it. The taste was so good it felt new but different each time you bought a cup. No wonder Boker focused on that aspect so much. But, and this is a big but, Howard noticed something. The Italians were masters of making everyone feel alive and excited. Even if it was a small cup of coffee, the atmosphere in coffee houses there was legendary. And here where a light bulb flashed in Howard's head. It was the experience. He knew right away that Starbucks' business model was missing such a crucial ingredient, and if he were to try something similar, Starbucks would become immortal. How exactly were the Italian coffee houses selling an experience? For one thing, the staff there would remember customers and call them by name. And when the coffee house itself was a great social hub, people would sit down and chat together, share stories, or exchange pleasantries. The Italian coffee houses were also a place where you could get work done if you wanted. That was it. Howard now had all he needed to make a convincing case for his employers in America. When he went back, Howard called it selling an experience, not just a cup of coffee. Judging by the amount of effort Howard put into his research, you would think the founders jumped for joy when they heard his suggestions. Not really. They did not like the idea because Starbucks was a retail business model first and foremost. It wouldn't make sense to go from that to something similar to a bar or restaurant. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. Howard Schultz leaves Starbucks in 1985, citing his disappointment with Starbucks' management choices. He would quickly go on a spree to convince everyone of his idea about selling an experience by buying a cup of coffee. After a string of rejections and naysayers telling him to give up, Howard would actually manage to convince several investors to at least give him the needed funds to start his own project. That marks the birth of Il Giornale. This was Howard's experiment of his new ideas. The Milan-style coffee shop would flip the script of known coffee houses upside down. Howard sold the experience. A cup of coffee was priced at $3 there, unlike Starbucks where it was merely 50 cents. The project would generate enough income for Howard to finally give him the chance to achieve his next milestone, buying Starbucks itself. The founders were ready to sell the brand's name, along with a roasting plant and 6 stores in Seattle for the price of $3.8 million. This all took place in 1987, and Il Giornale by then had gotten all assets from Starbucks and adopted the name. Talk about a crazy turn of events. 17 stores, a marketable brand, and a man with a vision in charge of things. Starbucks was going on a rampage after 1987. Howard's strategy moving forward as CEO was to focus on expansion. Mind you, we're not talking about doubling those 17 stores, but rather having hundreds of them all around the US and later the whole world. By 2000, Howard stepped down as CEO to turn his attention more toward leading Starbucks to global renown. Starbucks would soon start growing like mushrooms, opening 7 new stores every day. By 2008, Starbucks had a whopping 17,000 stores all around the world. The coffee revolution was here to stay. All good things must come to an end, and Starbucks' rapid expansion came to a screeching halt due to the 2008 financial crisis. Stocks fell by %50, and consumers were facing extreme financial strain, making it impractical to spend money on coffee servings. However, while the financial crisis was hard on everyone, Starbucks, as a brand, suffered from something else. It was complacency. Starbucks' brand was being watered down. Customers were expressing dissatisfaction with so many things that Howard and management couldn't help but notice. The board decided to get Howard back as CEO. They wanted him to turn things around, as he always did. Interestingly enough, Howard's new strategy, from 2008 and forward, was to stop expansion. He believed expansion was leading to more problems that are hard to manage and solve, and the solution was to try doing things differently. It was time for a return to form. Starbucks did away with automatic espresso machines first. Howard saw that while these machines were highly efficient, they kinda ruined the atmosphere of watching coffee being made right in front of you. And as expected, this really was a complaint by many customers. Old hires struggled at first when this change happened. Howard recognized that and started to retrain thousands of Starbucks baristas to make coffee themselves. The aroma was important too. Howard brought back the traditional method of grinding coffee in-house to arouse the senses of everyone there and keep them coming back. All of these decisions were unorthodox, to say the least, but Starbucks was always about the user experience above all else. In 2009, Howard's marketing strategy paid off big time. The company experienced newfound growth estimated to be over %142 from the past disaster year. The question now is, what's next for Starbucks? People look at real estate and banking as two potential areas where Starbucks' influence is very noticeable. It's well known that in the US, real estate property shoots up in value when it's near Starbucks' coffee shop. As for banking, Starbucks has been using technology to market its brand through apps and let people order things online. Without getting into too much detail here, it seems Starbucks is on the cusp of finding new sources of revenue inaccessible to other companies. At any rate, the future looks bright for Starbucks. When you look back at Starbucks and its humble beginnings, it's hard not to be inspired. The small unassuming coffee house in Seattle went through so many profound changes. Other businesses would seemingly fall apart if something similar were to happen, but Starbucks was based on a simple yet brilliant idea. Its founders were people with excellent business acumen who saw the potential in it, even before Howard took over. If you enjoyed this brief overview of Starbucks history, check out the next video on our YouTube channel for more inspiring, exciting stories like this one.